Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Skyrim. My name is Camel, but more importantly, welcome back to the Curating Curiosities series for an unexpected new episode. In this video today, I will be curating to you the curious curiosities that can be found within the pocket of Aetherius, known as Sovngarde. Now before we get cracking, timestamps for each of the curiosities in this video can be found down in the description and in the comments. Now down there in the description you can also find links to my other Curating Curiosities videos and to all of my social media. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and to join our new Discord server after this video. So Sovngarde. It is an unusual place that we find ourselves, as it is part of Aetherius, a plane beyond that of both Mundus and Oblivion, somewhere we do not get to experience all that often within the Elder Scrolls games. Now, as our little sojourn to Sovngarde is shrouded in prophecy, finality, and is rather short-lived, most players don't really get to look around and see what it has to offer. And to be quite frank, it's not too much, but there are some very interesting sights to be seen and curious questions to be asked and hopefully answered. And I do believe I have uncovered one of the most interesting secrets within Skyrim that I haven't really seen anyone speak of, but we'll save that one for the end because it's quite special. Now, Sovngarde is the Atmoran and Nordic afterlife created by Shor. Shor being the Nordic representation of one of the original spirits, the Etada or the god Lorcan, who also goes by the names Lorcaj, Sep, Shezzar, Sheor, and of course Shor, which in this video is what we shall be referring to this entity as. Given that it's all about the Nordic pantheon, I'm sure you would have guessed that anyway. Now, as mentioned, Sovngarde lies within Aetherius, which is a plane of existence separate to that of Mundus, the mortal plane, and Oblivion, the Daedric plane, Aetherius being the Aedric plane belonging to the Divines. Now, in regards to Sovngarde, only Atmoran and Nordic heroes who died fighting bravely in battle may enter and test their might against Tsun, the Bridgekeeper, as so they may enter the Hall of Valor and battle, drink, eat, and sing in eternal merriment and revelry within the Blessed Hall. Yes, I'm sorry, but that's right. The different races have different afterlives. Only Nords and Atmorans allowed in here. We won't be catching any of those Khajiit cooties today. Now, despite being a realm for the dead, mortals can enter Sovngarde, just as we do. They just need a means to get here, which is basically impossible, but of course for us, there is a way. Via a portal that we, the last Dragonborn, find atop the ancient temple of Skaldefin. This portal has been opened by the dragon priest Nacrin to allow Alduin to go between Aetherius and Mundus. Interestingly, Nacrin also actually bears a hidden unique dragon staff that we can actually acquire. However, it's quite difficult and kind of secretive, but if you want to learn how to get that, I'll suggest watching this video here where I show you just how to do that. But back to the portal. This is the only way and the only time that we ever get to enter Sovngarde. And once we return back to Mundus from our quest in Sovngarde, we may never return there in game. For this reason, Sovngarde remains primarily unexplored, with its mysteries unpried. Again, there honestly isn't anything near what we would come to expect from, say, another region of Skyrim that would find itself subject to one of these videos. But what is here we will curate and ponder curiously over. Before that though, geographically, Sovngarde, or at least the explorable Sovngarde, is heavily blanketed in an unnatural mist created by Alduin, as so he may hunt and reap the souls of lost and wandering Nordic heroes that now find themselves here in this pocket of Aetherius, trying to find their way to Shor's Hall of Valor. Now, speaking of finding one's self in Sovngarde, after plane shifting through Nacrin's portal at Skaldefin, when we enter Sovngarde, we find ourselves at the top of a narrow valley that twists through a verdant gully which then runs out into a basin. At the heart of this fog-heavy lowland, rising up at a rather forgiving gradient and piercing through the ground-dwelling cloud cover, is a bluff known as Alduin's Perch, which we'll get back to later. Now, the steep sides of the dale climb up into snowy slopes, which begin to melt the lower it descends into the warmer, dense air of the gulch, creating these gentle trickles and streams of water, babbling and fumbling down lazily, collecting into tepid pools and petite brooks, leaving the edges of the explorable area weeping away privately, like a lonely soul curled in bed in the dead of night. Beyond this, at the furthest end, the rivulets meet to form headwaters which gush over the edge of the cliffs in heavy turgid waterfalls that vanish into the abyss below. And of course, above all of this is the divine structure known as the Hall of Valor, resting atop a floating island of rock. The stars above shine bright and bedazzlingly as we've never seen before. Chromatic colors shift and dance through the timeless waking hours. Dusk and dawn both at once, night and day combined. Timelessness is a strange thing. We'll get back to the stars a little later on as they hide something special. The air in Sovngarde is filled with strands and speckles of an unknown white, ethereal gossamer, falling like ash but shining like enchanted snowflakes, never seeming to gather on the ground, just passing by, like we are, through this section of the Adric Plain Aetherius. I did also spend actual hours exploring the vast and almost endless nothingness beyond the explorable boundaries of Sovngarde, and rest assured there is absolutely nothing of interest out here, so let's head back to the Divine Dale actually worth exploring. Now, in regards to fauna, we have a situation much similar to that which we encountered within the Plane of Oblivion, known as the Sulcan, the dead realm ruled by the esoteric Ideal Masters. Sovngarde mirrors a similar fate when it comes to wildlife. There is actually not one single animal in all of Sovngarde. No birds, no reptiles, no mammals, no insects, no arachnids, no mythical creatures, nothing. Only the infrequent soul of a lost and wandering dead Nord hero. Now, this lack of life, which to be honest is entirely appropriate for an afterlife, having no life present, regardless, this lack of life, it applies a very strange and dreamlike oddness to the atmosphere of Sovngarde, especially to our mortal experience, like a subconscious screw tightening into our underlying sense of quite simply just not belonging here. Nothing is particularly unpleasant, but there is an undeniable air of unearthliness, which again is entirely appropriate as we are in an afterlife. Now, in regards to flora, we have an interesting mixture of biomes on our hands. In the high reaches and frosted edges of Sovngarde, the tall and proud snow-encrusted pine trees linger like memories from a dark past, the likes of which we would expect to find within an area such as the Hold of Skyrim, the Pale, or any mountainous region really, so high and cold the woods would be gilded in pure porcelain white. These trees are accompanied by snowed knolls and full frost banks. Descending lower into the heart of the valley, the plant life begins to shift into a color-filled ecosystem, with cone-laden evergreen pines lushly populating the curving mounds and grass-carpeted groves. An abundance of wildflowers spring from the rich soil, painting the area with a bright and vibrant assortment of petals and chromatic chlorophyll-fueled sprigs, twigs, bouquets, and bushels of baby bosks. It's much like the wonderful and curious plant life that we see in the Hold of Falkreath, which is a very beautiful place in Skyrim and worth taking a walk through with me, if you would so please. As we stroll further down into the lowest plains of the valley, we'll find the grounds beneath our feet burning with an autumn color. The foliage that covers the loam is the same tundra undergrowth we find in the boreal hold of Whiterun. Curious to have such a diverse mixture of biomes, stacked on top of one another like a fun Friday night. The Great Bluff in the middle also bears this Whiterun-like plant cover, and along with the nameless and mentionless flowers, plants, and mushrooms, throughout Sovngarde we can also find an abundance of mountain flowers, which come in red, blue, and of course the purple variant. The much rarer yellow mountain flower, however, eludes even the heavenly Sovngarde. But all these mountain flowers don't leave much room for other alchemical ingredients to grow, as on a number of rotten logs and tree stumps we can find clusters of Mora tapinella, the basis of all good restore magica potions, or as the artisan alchemists will tell you, a vital component of a fortify illusion elixir. But that's neither here nor there. Which is a lie, because it is here. We're here right now. But before we devolve into madness, there is also one tundra cotton plant that we'll get back to later on, as it's an interesting thread of thought. And with that rather odd introduction to a rather strange place, I think it is now time to curate to you the curious curiosities that can be found within Shor's pocket of Aetherius, known as Sovngarde. So once we bravely plunge into Nacrin's portal at the top of Skuldafn ruins, we'll find ourselves spat out of the plane shift, where we will now stand at the beginning of a long and winding set of stairs that lead down into the valley below, with numerous towering stone statues staring at us, which we'll get onto in a minute. As for now though, I'm interested in the large bones that decorate and infrequently line the side of the smooth and ancient stone steps that spill down the hillside into the gully beneath the frigid slopes. At first glance, I didn't have a single bone to pick with them, as I thought they were just mammoth tusks, but upon a closer inspection, both ends of these huge bones are rounded, unlike a mammoth tusk, or tusk of any other creature. So what in Shor's name could these be? Well, it turns out they are actually whale bones that have been pried from the great whalebone bridge that spans the void between Sovngarde's gardens and the levitating fortress of Shor's Hall of Valor. Why they have been removed from the primary skeleton is unknown. Perhaps they just fell off, perhaps they are from a second whale. But I do find it interesting that the developers went to the trouble of making a separate world model for a singular whale rib, as so that they could place them on these steps, when they could have quite simply and easily used a tusk and achieved basically the same result. But we'll get back to that whale later on, as there are some very interesting tidings washing up on the shores of that bridge. As for now, much like a hunk of ambergris, we'll move on from the whale. And onto these very eerie statues that I have spoken about in my Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Easter egg video. Now these towering columns of archaic rock stand with a haunting gaze, watching, with Norse motif carved into their figures like a racial branding. It's so creepy how they all have been placed as so that they are staring directly at us when we enter Sovngarde. Not exactly a welcome sight at all, but as we make our way down the stairs before we trudge on through to our journey, if we stop a moment and turn around, we'll notice that the statues will have followed suit. Every single cloaked pillar will have pivoted so that they now each face directly at the Dragonborn, constantly keeping guard, silently keeping watch. Now these statues all throughout the valley within Sovngarde will turn to face the Dragonborn wherever they are and wherever the Dragonborn is, but only when the player character is not looking at them. Now given you cannot witness this rotation, it sometimes makes it hard to believe that this has happened, and you'll begin to double guess yourself and even double doubt yourself. And while we cannot see the statues moving directly, I was able to stand in one of their shadows and catch that little sunny gem shifting around behind my back. If you look here at the ground at the great shadow being cast over and in front of the Dragonborn, as I move my character from side to side, we'll see the shadows snap into slightly different positions as the great statue behind us rotates to face directly at us. Creepy. Now these moving statues that only shift when you're not looking are thought to be a reference to the infamous weeping angels from Doctor Who, which are famously or infamously statues that only move when you are not looking at them. Luckily, despite them being rather unnerving, the ones here in Sovngarde are harmless. But think about this, break down the word statue. Stare at you. Stare at you. The statues stare at you. Good luck sleeping tonight while that information rattles around in your noggin. But as far as this curiosity goes, I think we've reached the statue of limitations. For now though, let's stroll on down into the fog-laden dale. As we wander aimlessly through this dream state, we'll notice that like toadstools dotted through a damp springwood, looming sentinels glow warmly within Alduin's mists that swill and swirl timeless through the shallow ever-gulches of the vale. These stone pillars crowned with braziers, throwing out an extremely, and aptly appropriate, ethereal pale yellow light. marking our path to salvation, holding our hand to the Hall of Valor that lies at the end of this simple yet disguised causeway. Interestingly, these stone plinths that the flames crown are of a unique motif and design that I do not recall seeing anywhere else in Skyrim. While, yes, they do tread heavily in the shadows of other Nordic structures and patterns, perhaps even those of the giants, they do not match them and sit on their own knoll of aesthetic. So rare and unique to this zone, in fact, that even the 200 or so texture overhaul mods that I have active have not touched these archaic stones. While truly unseen by the player, their subtle Nordic or even Atmoran designs still conjure a sense of home and familiarity to our ever overexposed Skyrim eyes. They are a welcome sight through this trying task that we endure. And speaking of unique assets within Sovngarde, here is a strange one. At the base of the bluff, at the center of the valley in Sovngarde, marking the starting point of the stairs that lead up to Alduin's Perch, we can find, sitting on either side, these animal totems. That, I want to make very clear, we do not see anywhere else in Skyrim. While we do see similar Atmoran architecture in Windhelm, those are of eagle heads, whereas these seem to be of some other kind of bird. I'm not too sure which. A rather squarely stylized dove perhaps, maybe even a duck, although such a suggestion would only be made by a quack. But much like a duck, my interests are peaking. Someone has specifically designed these duck or bird totems for Sovngarde. Now this specific motif we also find outside the Hall of Valor, and standing proudly on the rooftop as well. Clearly these bird totems are of some significance to Shor. Also, inside the Hall of Valor, we can find these huge and different hawk-like motifs, proudly displayed on all of the walls within the heavenly halls. Now within the Nordic pantheon, each god has an animal totem associated with them. This is why we find animal symbol puzzles within Nordic ruins. Now the interesting thing about Shor is, his animal totem is the fox, not the bird. So this does not explain at all why Shor's realm in Aetherius, Sovngarde, or Shor's very own Hall of Valor, is decorated with these bird totems, these bird motifs, these birdish designs. It's a tough egg to crack, but Shor is believed to be married to Kyne, otherwise known as Kynareth within the Imperial Pantheon. Now Kyne's animal totem within the Nordic Pantheon is nothing other than the hawk. So, it would seem that Shor has decorated his realm with his wife's animal totem as a tribute to their love. So that is actually quite very sweet, and sets a very high standard for the rest of us. I'm gonna have to put cats and ponies all over my house. But I don't know about you, for me personally, it's definitely the kind of detail that I sure find interesting. Now we'll wander up to the bluff at the center of Sovngarde known as Alduin's Perch. As we ascend the worn, olden steps, we'll soon breach the mists and be met by clear skies and a palatial tour healthily peppered with plants. Mountain flowers brighten the area along with their lesser floral friends. A calming and tranquil walk up the hill will soon provide us with a familiar and beaten sight near the crest. Buried in stone at the top of this hill is a word wall. This is Alduin's Perch, where he sits and plans his next soul abduction as he preys on the lost heroes in the mists. Sadly, this word wall appears to have long been deactivated, if it ever was active. And if we use some console commands and get under the ground, we will in fact see that this word wall is blank, much like the secret buried word wall that we found within the CCC video for the Sulcan. Now it is unknown if this word wall once provided the heroes of Sovngarde with a welcome teaching of Dovazul, the dragon tongue. And if it once did, there is certainly no one in here that shouts about it. Now before we leave this bluff, there is one more fluffy point I want to make note of, and that is at the end of the pathway that leads to the actual crest of the jagged peak. There is something not that amazing, but I at least found interesting. There is a single tundra cotton plant softly and subtly sitting as king at the height of the mount. The reason I find this interesting is because it's the only tundra cotton plant in all of Sovngarde, and it seems to have been placed in a rather regal spot. Right at the top of the most notable natural landmark within Sovngarde sits King, the tundra cotton plant. I love that a developer made the decision that what Sovngarde really needed to soften the sights was a cotton bush. It reminds me of the random group of berry bushes at the very edge of Falkreath Hold within the highest and most unexplored corner of Skyrim. And while a developer may have thought that such a decision would go unnoticed and most players would simply shrub it off, I for one have cottoned on. Before we make our way across the Whalebone Bridge and into the Hall of Valor, there is one thing that I would like to show you. When we level up in Skyrim, we are taken to this skill tree menu, stylized with stars and constellations. As I'm sure most of you have noticed, behind all of the combat-based skills, there is a red stellar cloud in the shape of the warrior birth sign. Behind all of the magic-based skills, there is a blue stellar cloud in the shape of the mage birth sign, and behind all of the sneaky and subterfuge-based skills is a green stellar cloud in the shape of the thief birth sign. It's a lovely little touch and it makes the skills menu rather aesthetic. Well, beyond this, within Sovngarde, if we simply look up to the ethereal maelstrom above, we can actually see these very same 3 stellar cloud formations spinning through the sky. The warrior birth sign in red, the mage birth sign in blue, and the thief birth sign in green. They blaze proudly through the cosmic firmament above, watching over the pocket of Aetherius Sovngarde in which we stand. A lovely detail that is easily missed, but definitely worth taking a minute to look up and soak in the astral artwork. And as cool as that is, these birth signs are not the star of the show. For that, we'll have to continue on our journey. Now we must cross the Whalebone Bridge to reach Shor's honoured Hall of Valor. However, we first must pass Tsun, the Bridgekeeper.
What brings you, Wayfarer Grim? A wander here in Sovngarde, Soul's End, Shor's gift to honor dead.
I seek entrance to the Hall of Valor.
No shade are you, as usually here passes, but living, you dare the land of the dead. By what right do you request entry?
By the right of birth, as I am Dragonborn.
Ah. It's been too long since last I faced a doom-driven hero of the Dragonmount.
Now what Tsun says there is dismissible at first, but this means that Tsun has faced a Dragonborn previously, and none of the known Dragonborns reside within the Hall of Valor, a detail we must keep in mind for later. For now though, we must pass over the Whalebone Bridge, and while we're at it, let's check it out, because things get a little bit strange. Now, whales do exist within the Elder Scrolls universe. We hear accounts of such creatures in texts and recounts by the many sailors and seafarers through Tamriel and Tamriel's history. We never actually see one in game though, until now. Or at least this skeleton is as close as we've got. And going back to the animal puzzles that we find all throughout Nordic ruins in Skyrim, the whale is an animal that we see displayed, which means it is the totem of one of the gods within the Nordic pantheon, although it's never specified which. Now, many people believe Tsun to be the totem bearer of the whale, as within the Nordic pantheon he is the god of trials against adversity. He is also very large, towering above the player character. In a sense, he is whale-like in stature. Tsun also guards the Whalebone Bridge, again associating him further with the whale. Now, Tsun's brother, Stuhn, the Nordic god of ransom, much like his brother, does not have a confirmed animal totem associated to him either. Because of this, some speculate that this Whalebone Bridge is in fact Stuhn, Tsun's brother, and that he bears the totem of the whale. This, to me at least, is much less viable than Tsun being the whale, but it is plausible, we simply just don't know. Now, there is another theory that these whale bones are actually those of Shor, but as we know, Shor's totem is the fox, not the whale. However, as I'm sure we've all heard many times throughout Skyrim, NPCs will often say, by Shor's bones. Now the only bones that we can associate with Shor at all are these bones here that form the whalebone bridge. And even if Shor isn't this whale, I do believe it to be entirely plausible that this line, by Shor's bones, is in reference to the whalebone bridge, as Sovngarde belongs to Shor, and these bones are within Sovngarde and hold great importance as they grant access to Shor's Hall of Valor. Now with all that said and done, this skeleton could also be the remains of a mythical creature known as a snow whale. Now a snow whale is a mystical entity said to fly above the highest mountains of Skyrim. There are also said to be sand whales that soar through the skies over the deserts of elsewhere, and sky mammoths that graze over the city of Sentinel and Hammerfell. But given we're in Skyrim dealing with the Nordic pantheon in a Nordic afterlife, I think it's safe to say that out of the two, this would be a snow whale if either, and not a sand whale. Now the thing about these snow whales, sand whales, and sky mammoths is they allegedly can only be witnessed after consuming an unspecific concoction. Now these claims are made by a Nordic alchemist from the Second Era called Vigwin Alwatcher, which is silly. Surely she should have been Vigwin Whale Watcher. But without this concoction that she proclaims to know how to make, these elusive sand whales and snow whales are invisible and undetectable. Now what I believe this likely to mean is that you need to be high as a kite, or in this case, high as a flying whale, and are therefore probably hallucinating after consuming this cracked woman's magic elixir. But as cooked as this sounds, stranger things take place in the Elder Scrolls. So, magical flying whales that can only be seen after drinking a mad alchemist's brew, it is plausible, and if anyone's upset or wants to dispute or disagree with this theory, just stop it. Just don't be a dick and stop being mopey. Or in this case, stop being a mopey dick. But before you harpoon me for that one, all in all, it is not known where this whalebone bridge came from. It is also not known which Nordic god within the pantheon bears the totem of the whale. But I think the most likely conclusion is it is Tsun, as he guards the whalebone bridge and is large in stature, or whale-like if you will. He also appears to be having a whale of a time. A simple observation that you cannot blow holes in. For now though, we must pass over the bridge and through to the divine doors and into Shor's Hall of Valor. Inside the citadel, we'll find named and unnamed Nordic heroes at Moran heroes drinking day and night, feasting upon the plentiful bounds of platters, vibrant selections of meats, cheeses, fruits, vegetables, breads, and desserts. 2 whole cows or oxen spin over a spit roast at the center of the hall, making the whole setting not only divine, but also bovine. Huge kegs of mead line the walls, dripping with the golden nectar drink. Wine bottles litter the tables, and plenty a tankard clink. Minstrels and bards strum and drum, singing their song and odes of ancient Nordic heroes, to none other than those very Nordic heroes in question. Warriors fight in friendly battle to prove their strength and worth, before clashing cups as they did weapons, to sit and dine and wield nothing more than a knife and fork to scoff down endless banquets, to then join the hearty Nordic merriment. Now, easily missed amidst all of this food and drink are 3 pieces of rather rare and even unique culinary interest. Firstly, on the table that sits nearest to the entrance, there is a large golden platter bearing a gourd, 2 apples, and a huge piece of meat that is actually unseen by the player character up until this point. This is one of only 2 roasted ox legs within the game. A huge haunch, fitting for any Nordic hero of old to wield like a great meaty mace and mash into their hungry bearded face. But I would suggest that you take it as a rather special souvenir of Sovngarde. Now there is a second roasted ox leg that can be found in the eastern wing of the Hall of Valor, along with the armory of mead kegs. Again, while not unique, it is one of only 2 in the game and worth keeping over consuming. Plus, if I ate all of this to myself, I would feel absolutely sick. I'd need to head outside and get some oxygen. Now, accompanying the roasted ox legs, there is also a unique piece of food at the high table in Shor's Hall of Valor. Rather fittingly placed at the head of the table, there is the unique, mythical, marinated, mystical roasted ox head. I understand it's meant to be like the king of meals, but honestly, I wouldn't want a bloody ox head on my plate. Although, it could be an aphrodisiac, as it certainly looks horny. I know, it's weak. That joke was just a load of utter bull. Now, despite me telling you to not eat these rarer roasted ox parts but instead keep them as a souvenir of Sovngarde, well, you don't really have a choice. They are actually miscellaneous items that cannot be eaten anyway, so there's nothing other to do than collect them and lug them back to Skyrim, to plonk down in your homes. I mean, it's about time you gave Lydia some meat. And they aren't even worth selling, as collectively all 3 pieces of the ox have a combined value of 5 gold. So yeah, definitely not cash cows. Ah yes, now this grand seat that sits at the heart of the highest table at the center of the Hall of Valor is no standard bar stool or mead hall pew. This is nothing other than Shor's throne, which we'll notice is empty. It seems like the king of the castle isn't here, but the heroes of Sovngarde have an explanation.
Shor's high seat stands empty. His mien is too bright for mortal eyes.
While I guess, sure, that makes sense, there is another theory as to why the throne sits empty, and it all begins when we, the Dragonborn, attempt to sit in the throne. Well, we can. We, not Shor, can sit our professorial Dragonborn buttock into the throne of a god. Well, there is a theory, and a well-supported theory, that we, the last Dragonborn, are actually the Shezzarine. The Shezzarine is a mortal incarnation of the missing god of creation, Lorcan, or Shor, as I explained earlier, the same thing. Now, the name Shezzarine comes from the Cyrodiilic name of the missing god, that being Shezzar. Much like how the player character in The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind is the Nerevarine, a reincarnation of Indoral Nerevar, it's thought that we, the last Dragonborn here in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, are actually this legendary, mortal incarnation of Shor, the Shezzarine. Many of humanity's greatest heroes are believed to have been Shezzarine, such as Pelennor Whitestrake, Zurin Arctis, Hjelti Earlybeard, and High King Wulfharth of Skyrim, with Shezzarine Oversouls believed to have been Tiber Septim, the Underking, and the Mortal Talos. It's without question that the player character, the last Dragonborn, is a hero of great power and prophecy, equaling those of the great heroes or the great Shezzarines that came before. This, coupled with the fact that we turn up to the Hall of Valor, Shor isn't present, along with the fact that we can simply sit in the throne of a god, all leads us to believe that we are in fact a mortal incarnation of Shor. We are Shezzarine. And while, unlike the College of Winterhold, this theory does have very strong foundations supporting it, unlike our player character, we cannot be entirely sure. And now we move on to the final curiosity for Sovngarde, and what I believe to be hands down the most interesting find in this video, or perhaps even the entirety of the Curating Curiosities series. Quite a claim, I know, but strap yourselves in and decide for yourselves, as there is a secret hidden in plain sight that I'm sure some of you have noticed but probably overlooked, as I haven't seen anyone talk about this. So let's go back a bit, back to Tsun, the Bridgekeeper. When we tell him that we are Dragonborn, he says this.
It's been too long since last I faced a doom-driven hero of the Dragonland.
What this means is that Tsun here has fought a Dragonborn before, but out of all known Dragonborns, none of them are in Sovngarde. We cannot find Miraak, the first Dragonborn. We cannot find Al-Esh, slave queen Saint Alicia. We cannot find Emperor Remen Cyrodiil. we cannot find Tiber Septim. We also do not find anyone from the Septim bloodline. And along with not being able to find any known Dragonborns in Sovngarde, we can also find neither of the only two suspected Dragonborns, High King Ysmir Wolfhalf of Skyrim and Mankar Cameron. So pay close attention. All known Dragonborns and all known suspected Dragonborns are not present here in Sovngarde. So how could it be that Tsun has fought a Dragonborn before us? When? Or more pressingly, who could be the Dovahkiin that came before us and faced off against Tsun? They'd have to be here in Sovngarde in the Hall of Valor. Now, while there are a number of named ancient Nordic heroes and Admoran heroes within the Halls of Valor, none of them are the Dragonborns mentioned previously, and the Dragonborns mentioned previously are all known Dragonborns. And while there are a number of unnamed generic heroes of Sovngarde, they all share the same pool of dialogue, revealing nothing of interest, until we reach this man. Again, simply and generically named Hero of Sovngarde, along with the other 20 or so heroes of Sovngarde. But this man, he wears ancient Nordic armor, likely coming from Atmora or the early eras of Skyrim's settlement. But he has one line of dialogue that none of the other residents of Sovngarde have.
Hail, Dragonborn! That honor is also mine. To our shared birthright, you'll bring new glory.
He, too, is Dragonborn. This is the Dovahkiin Tsun references. Now at first, I was like, oh cool, another Dragonborn. But if we really think about this, this is incredibly significant. Besides Tiber Septim and the Septim bloodline, there have been 4 or 5 Dragonborns throughout all of Elder Scrolls history. And those not of the Septim bloodline only have their dragon blood and soul because Akatosh has specifically blessed it unto them for a great purpose. And this guy here is not of the Septim bloodline, nor is he any of the known existing Dragonborns, nor does he even fit their descriptions. You feel me? We on the same page? This is mythically rare. There isn't a Dragonborn in every city. There isn't even a Dragonborn in every lifetime. There are whole eras, thousands of years throughout Tamriel's history where a Dragonborn is not seen, is not born, where a Dragonborn does not exist for millennia. Being Dovahkiin, this ain't something like being left-handed, this is mythically rare. And all the Dragonborns are named and branded deep into the history books. None of them simply pass the world by. They only exist because Akatosh wished it, and for a great purpose. A Dragonborn being born is like Jesus returning. It's a very significant event, and there have only been a handful ever to exist. So, who the hell is this guy? I mean, there are no accounts of an unknown Dragonborn. There's no history books that tell tales of a great warrior turning up and using the strength of a Dovahkiin to best great adversaries. There's no mysterious socket to bejewel, but we have this gem. This guy is the feat, but there are no shoes to fill. This mysterious, unnamed Dovahkiin has completely flown under all known history and recounts. There are no unaccounted for Dragonborns, yet here he stands, an unknown and unnamed ancient Nordic, possibly Atmoran Dragonborn blessed by Akatosh. He has utterly, entirely, and completely gone unnoticed by all of Tamriel. People paid less attention to this guy than my Rage Easter egg video. So who on Nirn is this man? Quite simply, we don't know. There is nothing in legend or history that can be associated with him. So legit, my dudes, who the hell is this guy? Now, I will say that I talked to every other hero of Sovngarde until they repeated every line of dialogue 3 times. I did this to every single one of them, including this unknown Dragonborn guy. Now, the only one to say this Dragonborn line was this bloke that we've been talking about for the last few minutes. None of the other heroes of Sovngarde ever said that they were also Dragonborn. I also tested this on 3 different characters, and each 3 times, only this same guy said that he too was Dragonborn.
Hail, Dragonborn! That honor is also mine. To our shared birthright, you'll bring new glory.
So as far as my testing can conclude, this line of dialogue is unique to this unnamed hero of Sovngarde. And it's not a random throwaway line which they all share, making this guy, in fact, a specific and uniquely unknown ancient Dovahkiin. And I would love to hear your theories on this guy. Now, with that hidden and confusing gift bestowed upon us by Akatosh, in two different senses, we have now fully explored and curated the curious curiosities for Sovngarde found within Aetherius. I do hope you have enjoyed this utterly unique area with its celestial valley, bedazzling stars, and Shor's Hall of Valor, where a select few very lore-obscure and unexplainable oddities lay in wait for the keen explorer to discover and question. So whether they were new finds or old friends, I do hope that you have enjoyed the curious curiosities of Sovngarde. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I've been Camel. I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and I do hope you have thoroughly enjoyed the Curating Curious Curiosities episode for the ethereal and heavenly plane of Aetherius, Sovngarde. If you did enjoy this video and you would like to see more of these type of videos, please consider subscribing. It helps me know that you are interested in this kind of content and will result in more of it in the long run. And if you do enjoy these CCC videos, please feel free to check out the links in the description. These of course will lead you directly to the Curating Curious Curiosities videos that I've already done for Skyrim. If you did learn something new in this video, please leave a like, I'd appreciate it greatly. If you do have any theories, backstories, imaginings, or explanations for any of these curious curiosities, please leave a detailed rundown of what your thoughts are in the form of a comment down below. I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say in regards to these ever so strange and curious finds within Sovngarde, especially that last one. The community's collective mind power will be much greater than mine, I hope. So together we can come up with all of the backstories for these curious curiosities. Now down there in the description you can also find links to all of my social media. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and join our brand new Discord server. If you'd like to support the channel in a more personal way, you can do so on Patreon or sponsor the channel right here on YouTube. As I'm sure you know, all of my time and energy goes into making these videos that I create for you to enjoy, so your support is most genuinely appreciated and welcomed in any and all forms. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. I've been Camel, and I will see you very shortly in the next video. I'll see you there soon. Or to keep in the theme of Sovngarde, I'll see you there soon.